This is a video that I've been working on for a very long time. I have always loved boats. I grew up on boats with my grandpa since I was about 4 years old. I bought my first boat in 8th grade at 15 years of age. It was a 1966 MacGregor Venture, the boat that you see in this video. When I first got it, it had a hole in it punctured by the trailer where the rotted wood, after sitting for many years in the desert, allowed one of the stanchions to go into the hull. Dad and I brought it home, and it sat in my backyard for a good another 6 years or so before we were able to put it together again. You see, my dad restores antique and classic cars for a living, and now he's a car painter primarily. But he knew fiberglass work and knew that he could do the work on this boat. He was waiting for the right time to show me how to do the work, and for the time when I would be able to drive and take that boat to the water and use the boat as it should be after the work was done. I started sailing this boat in 2001, 2002. Learned the hard way how to sail. All of my friends and many of the adults in my life said that I should probably go to sailing school, get a certificate in sailing, learn how to sail. And I kept repeating the same thing over and over again, saying, Columbus sailed off what was thought to be a square world and found lots and lots of land. If he can sail off a square earth, I can sail this boat. We did have one day of some training, whereas a friend of mine that sailed with me and the other fella in this picture knew how to sail. He had taken sailing lessons. He taught us how to rig the boat and sort of how to find the wind. That was the one and only time he ever sailed with us. Actually, let me back this story up. Before sailing with someone who knew how to sail, my friend Patrick, Tim, and I decided to take the boat out and figure this thing out by ourselves. I had a motor, so I knew that we would be okay if all else failed with the sails. We could motor ourselves back and get ourselves back on the trailer and drive it back home. So, we took, and we rose the jib sail. At that time we were calling it the front sail. And we sailed alone with a jib, no main. One, we had never even rigged the main before, so we had no idea how the pulleys worked or if we had the proper necessities to get the main up and hold it up. But two, we just wanted to sail. And when we pulled the jib up, the boat started to move. So we figured we were sailing. Why bother with the main until we figured it out? So we went for probably about an hour in one direction and had a great time with the wind at our back. And I felt like a king. My boat solid on the water. After so many years of rotting away, we were sailing. And then we decided to turn the boat around. Boy, was that a mistake. The motor didn't start, and we didn't know how to sail upwind, nor could we figure out how to sail with a jib in an opposite direction. So we ingeniously threw the anchor overboard and decided that we would hold there until somebody would come and rescue us. I had no chain on my anchor rod. It was a nice polyester floating line attached to my anchor, so when I threw it over, we just kept floating along, heading right towards those rocks. It got to the point where we were freaking out, and a fella in a very old boat himself, but with a motor, came over and threw a line to us and was beginning the pull to haul us away. When the sheriffs pulled up and told them that that was illegal and they needed to do it for us, they were kind enough to haul us all the way back to the dock, saving a very large two-masted gaff-rigged schooner that was heeled as far over as you could pull that boat. As it came close to us and we hollered and hollered and hollered, it let up all of its sails and righted itself just in time to miss us. Again, thankfully, the sheriffs pulled us out of that mess and brought us back to the dock. And the first question out of my mouth was, am I going to get charged for this? They smiled and shook their head no. That was my first adventure in sailing. And then we went with the kid who knew how to sail. He taught us some of the basics, and from there on out, it was trial and error, learning how to sail this boat, a 21-foot 1966 Venture made by MacGregor. The boat didn't look like this in the beginning. It had no lifelines along the side. It didn't have the major pulleys. Most of the original old 1966 hardware was still on it. Instead of that rubber rub rail you see around the midsection of the boat, it was a wooden rub rail that had broken in many places and was falling apart. The hatch cover didn't slide. It actually physically just flipped off. It never had its slides when I bought it. The bow pulpit was a whole different animal. It didn't have any anchor area. And so when I decided that I was going to try and actually get the boat set up for a Catalina sail, I did a lot of work to it. I decided that we were going to paint the bottom of the boat, which we did. And then I decided that we were going to paint the top of the boat, which we did. I removed all of the hardware. And as I removed it, I began putting better, bigger, stronger hardware back. New rigging for both of the guy wires on each side of the boat. New block and tackle for all of the running rigging. The only things I didn't replace were the sails, except that we added a roller furling jib sail. And that was the first time on this particular sailing trip that we'd ever used a roller furling jib sail. It was ingenious. Not only did we have the chance to sail it with a lot more ease than having to go up and raise and lower the sail physically on the foredeck, but tacking wasn't at all as hard as I thought it would be. I left the forestay for the original jib up, so the actual roller furling jib had to go around the forestay that was in place originally. I put the forestay for the roller furling another 3 feet forward up on the bow pulpit, but I had sailed on a much bigger ship with 3 foresails and knew that that was possible. I had no issues whatsoever sailing this. Again, it was trial and error getting to this point. We ran all of the block and tackle for the boom and had to sail several different test sails to figure out if where we put the actual blocks, the single blocks, the double block, and then later on we added the triple block, were proper for giving us the angle of sail that we needed in both tacks. And when we found that we finally made it work, that's when we decided Catalina was our next adventure. And so this video introduces you not only to my boat, the go-around, but to the life that this boat has provided me and the ability to get to a destination that was once a dream as a boy, sitting on a dirty, dusty relic of what was an old 1960s plastic boat, to now a beautiful, gleaming, painted, solid sailing 21-foot MacGregor Venture. On this trip, we encountered waves that we had never seen before in height. We would like to say they were 10 stories tall, but as you can see by the video, probably more like 3 or 4 feet, with maybe here and there a 5-footer, and if we could say it, we would absolutely identify 6 and 7 footers, but again, more like 3 or 4 feet. There was a little bit of wind. We had to motor the first way out about 20 miles worth from Marina del Rey. And then once we got out there and it was later in the day, the wind picked up and we were able to sail almost all the way from there into Catalina. We decided to motor through the mooring field for the safety of keeping ourselves away from the other larger, more expensive boats. But the trip was amazing. The boat reacted absolutely well to the waves that it had never seen before. Up until this point, the only time it had ever sailed offshore was down to Newport on a test sail in very, very moderate weather. Before that, we sailed it in the Los Angeles harbor all of its life, from 2001 till 2012. So this was its first adventure offshore. But with all the experience that we gained from sailing the distance that we sailed, we figured that this was something we could do. Take a look at our other videos when you get a chance.